Good evening. We will be conducting tonight's meeting here at City Hall Council Chambers, as well as virtually using Zoom. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting tonight on Wave Channel 18 and online through the city's YouTube channel. If you would like to participate in live public comment via the Zoom platform, please refer to the agenda for instructions. Stephen I. from Salt Mine Church will be giving the invocation this evening, and Mayor Carl Skint will begin the meeting immediately after the invocation.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I know it's routine, but an honor nonetheless. Thank you. If you would pray with me. Father, we thank you for concerning yourself with this city and its residents and even this city council meeting this evening. And thank you, Father, for giving us leaders and citizens who have made it their goal to make this and establish this and make sure this continues to be a thriving city. We ask, Lord, for your wisdom tonight and your counsel. May you guide our thoughts and our actions and our decisions. Keep your hand on this city and on its leaders. We thank you, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. Now it's 6 o'clock. I will call the meeting of the City of Lincoln, Lincoln City Council, Lincoln Redevelopment Successor Agency, Lincoln Public Financial Authority for April 9th, 2024 to order. May I please have the roll?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Andriotta?
Here.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Joyner?
Here.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Here.
And Mayor Carl Skint.
Here. I would like to ask Jennifer Brown to lead us in the flag salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll just indicate there was no reportable action from closed session.
Skip one item on the agenda. Could you please report out from the closed session?
There is no reportable action from closed session. Mayor.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is agenda modifications. Does anyone from the council wish to modify the agenda? Anyone from staff? Okay, we'll go on to presentations. The Tres Hermanos Art Installation Project. There will be a presentation.
I am beginning to feel a little bit more familiar with this organization. It's my third presentation to you. This one actually started almost 2 years ago with discussions with the Art League and got a little bit more formal about 9 months ago with the Art League, met with the board. They had been talking about doing something in front of the Art League building for a while now, something to make it, okay? Yep. Something to make it a little more obvious that that was an art building. They've done a few things and we plan on doing some more. In the presentation, the title of this is a working title. We're looking at changing it from the three, in Spanish, the three siblings to the three artists. The siblings in Spanish, hermanos, can be confused with the three brothers. And that was really not the intent. And the Art League, the members of the Art League have expressed an interest in doing something that was more art-oriented. And we're looking at maybe calling it the three artists. So, but we're still in Spanish, the Tres Artistas. Okay, is that going to come up? All right. So I think everybody would recognize the front of the Art League's building. It was it's my understanding, I'm relatively new to the community, so it's my understanding that this was a PG&E office at one time. Is that correct? And it looks like a PG&E office or maybe a bank. And so part of the objective was to make it a little bit more art-friendly, interesting. And the proposal that we're going to do or want to do is to place three sculptures in the front of it that would look something like this. They would be on a concrete base that would go 1 foot into the ground, 1 foot out of the ground, be about 8 feet long and 2 feet wide, and they would hold three vertical columns. The vertical columns would, missing a little bit of the bottom of it, that's okay. The vertical columns are made up of wide flange beams, which are structural steel beams. They would be 6 feet tall. And the part that you're looking at now is what they call the web of the beam. It's the beam, the high side of the beam. There are two channels, one on the front side, one on the back side. And both of them would have these ceramic elements that would be similar, but not the same. The pieces would be, as I said, 6 feet tall. They would be allowed to rust. In fact, I'll probably put a rust accelerator on them like I've done it with other work in town. And the organic rusty quality and then the pieces of ceramic are designed to give that structural interest. I've been here a couple times. I've shortened this up, try to keep it from getting too repetitive. But these are some of the places that I have pieces of work now for anybody that was not at any of my earlier presentations. As I've said before, all of my work is collaborative. In this case, I'm working with one of the welders in town, working with the Art League, of course. And also the city. The city has been very helpful in the past with doing the concrete basis for all the pieces I've installed. So as I said, it's a collaborative effort. Briefly, I'll run through these. These are some of the pieces that I've installed either in this community or in other communities. The one on the left is Reading here at the museum, the Archive Museum in the center, and then another piece outside of Reading in a traffic circle in Reading. And these are at Shasta College, and in the center is at the Turtle Bay Exploration Park. And then the other one that's here in Lincoln is the Stacks, which is at the Lincoln Library. And this is a little bit of my background, most of which you already know about, so I'm not going to go into that again. I'll leave it there while I finish, but and I think the appropriate thing now would be if there are any questions from anybody that they would like to bring up.
Anyone on the council have any questions?
I have a question, but you can go first.
Yes.
Just curiosity, we're seeing, I think, just the front of these pieces. Will the ceramic treatment only be on the front facade?
Well, let's see if I can get back to someplace. Oh, there you go. The two walkways, the walkway in closest to us is the city's sidewalk. The walkway closest to the building is the handicapped accessible sidewalk into the Art League. The piece goes between those two walkways, and if you're familiar with an I-beam, a wide flange beam, it has two sides, and those channels will have ceramic elements on both sides of them. The ceramic elements that are in those channels will be the same for each individual piece, but different one piece from the other. And I know it's a little bit confusing. In fact, we had a little discussion about it before the meeting started. Sometimes I'm working with things that I think are fairly familiar to people, because that doesn't really tell you much about what this is going to look like. This one, imagine that the two flanges are on the right and left side of that beam, and the web is in between those two
It's
flanges.
effectively an H if you look at. if you
It's
look
like an
straight down
H beam or an I beam, referred to both ways.
Right. So my curiosity was just whether there was going to be a treatment on one
Both
side or
sides,
both
yeah,
sides of
and
the
it's
channel.
designed to be seen from both sides, from both walkways. Both those walkways are used a lot. So,
Okay. And so no treatment on the sides?
no,
at
nothing
all?
on the edges. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, my question is, so the Art League building is a city building, correct? And we lease it to them, correct? Okay. So, I don't want anybody to freak out because we've never had a conversation about doing anything with that building except for the Art League. But my question is that where we are with this building? Like it's theirs forever as long as they want it? Okay, because my concern is I support your work and you've done beautiful work and I support the art. But my question is, what happens if we come to a place where we decide we need that building back and we're going to relocate the Art League? I would hate to have to rip that up or whatever. I mean, I'm just,
It
it's,
could be relocated.
Can it be
You're going to put-
relocated?
Yeah.
Your question actually came up.
Okay.
We had a board meeting with the Art League. We
Okay.
went through many of these same questions, and that was one of their primary concerns too, is that they understand that
okay,
this is not a forever arrangement possibly.
okay,
And these are bolted down to a concrete base. The concrete base might be a little bit of a trick to move. The
you
sculptures
can-
themselves,
okay.
not so much.
perfect.
Yeah.
So it's the Art League itself at this point that's looking for a bigger space.
Okay.
They may be the driving force behind. it.
Okay, well, and that makes perfect sense. I don't want anybody to think that, we're
Yeah.
planning anything,
Well,
but I
no,
just
but
thought
remember, that property was purchased
for the parking garage.
for a parking
Yes.
structure.
Yeah.
And so this is beautiful. I love it. It will be great downtown. I just would hate for anything to happen to it or have to tear it out or so. okay. But
Well,
it can
apparently
be
that
big-
was very aware, they were very aware of
Okay.
that. When we talked, that was one of their main concerns, is that
Okay.
these things could be moved.
Great, thank you.
The question that I have is, I really love that you're putting an accelerator on there to get it to rust a little bit. I've seen where they do a rust patina as well.
Yeah.
And didn't know if maybe having that patina put on there to like a clear coat of some kind of, after the rust kind of set in. I kind
Yeah,
of,
there's a couple ways to handle it. There's a steel product called Core-10 steel, which you may be familiar with. It's designed to rust and sets up oxidized barrier then and stops rusting. These are not Core-10 steel, but they're fairly heavy. They're about 1/4 inch thick. I try to avoid doing anything that will require long-term maintenance, that somebody has to come out every year and re-clear coat or every 2 years. And the fact is that 1/4 inch steel, if you've seen some of it, right, I mean, it'll 50, 60, 80 years from now, it'll still be there.
okay.
Yeah, so I do not plan on clear coating it. You're right, though, there are several treatments you can put on steel to give it copper look, bronze look, any number of different looks. And I've kind of fixed on the rust accelerated, more of a natural look.
Okay, yeah. I just was worried about the ongoing maintenance.
Yeah, well,
of
that's
it.
what we're trying to avoid is ongoing maintenance, just let it rust, yeah.
Okay, no more counts. Any questions from the audience? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Phillips.
Well, thank you very
As
much.
usual, you're bringing an exciting project. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment on non-agenda items. I have several cards. First card is from Lee Fryer. Do I have the name wrong? There,
Yeah, he wants to go after the other ladies. So.
Sandy? Okay. Okay.
Good evening, council members, mayor, hello. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to speak to you. We thank you for being servants of the people, for having taken your oaths of office to uphold and defend our constitutions. So we are here in peace as we the people. To give you notice and instruction so that you and your agents may provide due care. This national lockdown notice has already been given to 50 state governors, to the President of the United States, to the Supreme Court, to the United States Senate, and the United States Congress. We are now giving you a copy. In January, we learned that the federal government, in alignment with the World Health Organization, has announced an amendment to a credible threat of public health emergency. Their expanding countermeasures now include both Ebola and Marburg viruses, and extension of liability immunity to manufacturers, distributors, program planners, qualified persons and their officials, agents, and employees. We have included this report in our notice envelope just given to you. We have also learned that the government was never granted any authority to lock down the people, even in times of emergency. The main object of government is the protection and preservation of personal rights, private property, and public liberties. The government just serves for our benefit as public officers, trustees, and servants of the people. We are also attaching a list of unalienable rights, which includes the right to accept or refuse any medical treatment for any reason. Since this council has a history of putting the city under health emergency orders for extended periods of time, we are very concerned that another round of involuntary lockdowns and health orders could occur in our fair county.
Hi, Council. My name is Deborah Grinder. I'm from We the People. Please take notice that in all states, in our Republican form of government, have sworn to protect individual liberty as a condition to be hired as trustees. The people of America are all guaranteed to have the same rights in all states. As an elected official, do you believe it is your duty to always protect the natural rights of the people so they are guaranteed enjoyment of all their natural rights? Or do you believe that in some form, in some time of panic or emergency, that you can remove the people's rights to freely exercise liberty, movement, worship, commerce, or any other purpose that is lawful? If so, please show constitutional authority where you get that power, posting this granted authority conspicuously within the next 15 days, notifying the public and all agents. If you cannot show where you got the authority and you take any action blocking the people's rights to enjoy freedom, then any lockdown, mandate, or forced use of any medical device will be construed as being done with malice, intent, full knowledge, and understanding against your trust indenture, your contract with the people, the Constitution. This notice is given in peace and with the love of Christ, that you and your agents may provide due care to those who have all the political power, the people. Thank you.
I'm Dave. I'm with We the People. I want to thank the mayor, the vice mayor, city council, and the staff for your hard work and dedication to the city of Lincoln. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Woolley, and I'm from We the People, and we're very grateful for your attention. We're really grateful that you are honoring the Constitution that you swore an oath to. It makes me cry every time I read the oath, because my son is in the military. He's a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. And it brings tears to my eyes knowing that he also swore an oath to the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So God bless you. God bless the city of Lincoln. And We the People are finding our voice. So thanks for listening.
prior. Yeah, so bear with me. I prepared this, just a few minutes before coming here. Okay, thanks. Yes, very hastily. Apologize. Okay. I support the notice that Debbie and Deborah read to you and the others shared their comments on. And I'm here to express my opinion that many of the policies imposed under COVID lacked wisdom. I'll itemize them like this. Number one, sort of expressing this as an opinion as well, infringing on anyone's ability to participate in the marketplace is a usurpation of individual liberty, and it's a threat to the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of health. I didn't usually hear that as happiness. I said health on purpose, because for some people, in fact, everybody really, freedom of movement is sort of a precursor to the pursuit of health. If you can't move, you're pinned, and participating in the economy is essential. You know, medications could be food, and the economy itself. Okay, number two, mandating or sanctioning, I'm referring now to the vaccine, or what was called the vaccine during COVID, mandating or sanctioning an understudied and or questionable new technology, is. This is an infringement, also infringement or usurpation of individuals to make their own choices for their health. Mandatory masking is another example of government usurpation of individual liberty. And to insist otherwise, in my opinion, is to infantilize the public that you're beholden to. I apologize, but got one more point. Bear with me. Today, we hear many things are being vertically integrated. That's kind of a key buzzword now, vertically integrated. And supposedly we're poised to live in a healthier and more, poised to live healthier and more constructive lives by concentrating and centralizing control. Be that in our schools, regional governments, to the states, business practices, and most importantly, health. Recently, I heard an interview between Robert Malone and Jan Jekulek of the Epoch Times, and it was rhetorically asked during the interview whether vertical integration is compatible with the Hippocratic Oath. Me, for one, emphatically argue no, that decentralization of power is essential to the well-being of our society and good decision-making. And it's also a key idea of our American form of governance.
Need to wrap up, please.
My time is up, is
Your
that what you're
time's
saying? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Nate?
jump in real quick? I'll keep it brief. If that's all right. So I just wanted to clarify that I think the majority, if not all of this council, absolutely agrees with you. This city never participated in a lockdown and forced anything. I think we did one notification to a business that had COVID present within the staff, but did not enforce that any further. I think you'll find our chief of police was not going to enforce any mask mandates, anything. And Lincoln, among many Placer County cities, resisted all of that and pretty publicly. So.
Okay. Public comment still open. Any other members of the public wishing to make comments on items not on the agenda?
Good evening. Under the California Tort Claims Act, there are very specific rules that you have to follow in order to file a personal injury claim against a governmental entity. A written notice of claim must be filed within 6 months of the incident, after which time the governmental entity has 45 days to respond by accepting the claim, rejecting the claim, or requesting more information. If the claim is rejected, you have 6 months from the date of the rejection to file a lawsuit. Last council meeting, Mayor Carlisitt said that the reason that you were not commenting is because there was a lawsuit filed. I believe that your city attorney is misinforming you. April 3rd is when I received the rejection of the complaint. April 3rd. That was after last council meeting. So you clearly could have been talking up to that point, including 6 months, 16 months prior. No communication whatsoever. I want the residents of Lincoln who are present here listening, as well as those who have reached out to me on social media. 16 months of the city council doing absolutely nothing to help me with my situation. I have 3 specific incidences. I met with Mayor back in early 2023 at Starbucks. He informed me that the council does not get involved in code enforcement. They leave that up to the city attorney. She is your employee. She works under you. You left her to do whatever she cared to do, and you cared nothing about it. You told me you would assist, you did nothing. Second incident was in regards to my retaining wall. I called a meeting with the city attorney. I had a geoengineer do a study of my lot. My lot is eroding and falling off the side of my property. I put a retaining wall in for structural reasons. I had that report. They reviewed it for less than 20 minutes, and all they came back and said was that's their opinion. A licensed, reputable engineering firm, and all they could say was that was their opinion. Did nothing more about it. Third specific incident was asked all of you on the panel if I could meet with you in December of 2023. Only 3 of you responded. 2 of you were out of the country. I think 1 was out of the country, 1 was out of the state. Never followed back up with me again, even though I requested to schedule a meeting when you got back. The only one that did was Councilmember Andreotta, again, met at Starbucks. She listened to my mother-in-law and I. In my opinion, she acted appalled as to what treatment myself and my family had incurred for the last, up to that point, year. She said that she would help us. I informed her that I did not file a complaint. I was still wanting to get a resolution. Even up to that point, she said that she would assist. She did nothing. All she did was turn it over to your city manager, whom over the last 16 months, I had tried to get him for a meeting. All he did was refer those back to his employees. Never once did he meet with me until Councilwoman Andreotta turned it over to him. We had a meeting, telephone call, myself and my mother-in-law, and all he said was, I will help. I've worked on issues with the city attorney in the past to come to a resolution. He never followed back up. So my point here, City Council, is for you to say that you couldn't speak. Yes, you could. For 16 months, including up to last council meeting, you could have spoken, and you did nothing. I'm very, very frustrated, and I'm trying to maintain, but none of you understand the severity of what is going on with my property, and none of you have cared for the last 16 months. I want members, the citizens of Lincoln, as well as
Your
those who have reached out to me in
time is
social
up.
media to understand what lack of concern you have faced with my situation. Thank you very much.
Any other members of the audience wish to speak?
So I think that that's going to require at least a minimal response here. Christine?
I'm going to close. Are there any other people who wish to speak? Public comment.
We have a number of
Okay,
people on Zoom, but no hands are raised.
Okay, I will close public comment. I did, in fact, get you the information that I said I would get you when we met that time at Starbucks. Sounds like Starbucks making a lot of money off of us. I did what was appropriate. And I object to your saying that I did nothing. Thank you. You had something to say?
I do. Christine, is there a case number that's been issued?
Yes, Councilmember Joyner. So just for clarity's sake, for for whatever reason, in Ms. Gilchrist's mind, there's a question as to whether there actually exists pending litigation. And I don't know what document it is she's referring to that she received within the last few days. And I won't speculate, but I do have here in front of me a summons and complaint filed by the attorney for Deborah Gilchrist, the plaintiff, Jameel White of the Lewis White firm in Roseville, California. A summons, it is case number SCV 005-2085. I also have a document that was served to me by her attorney that is a notice of confirmation of electronic filing, which is a confirmation with the Placer County Superior Court that they in fact received the summons and complaint. The court thereupon issued a notice of case management conference, which has been scheduled for June 10th at 2:00 p.m. In Department 6 of the Placer County Superior Court. And based upon the filing deadlines, the city, within the last week or so, has filed its responsive pleading and answer to complaint in that same lawsuit. And so the case is well underway.
I think what I will add to that is, I'm the one that was on vacation. When I got back, I got fully briefed on the situation. It became very clear that there were threats of litigation even at that time, and that it was most appropriate that council not get involved in that and leave it with the city attorney's office.
Just for clarification's sake as well, I gave you the case number. The case filing date was January 31st of 2024.
Well, and I would just like to say for the record that I did meet with Ms. Gilchrist and her mother-in-law for over 2 hours in December. I didn't know about this for 16 months. I had just learned of it that time, and I did exactly what I said I would do. I followed up with Mr. Scully several times, and he investigated and he got up to speed on everything. And by that time, your lawyer had filed. So I did exactly what I said I would do. I didn't do nothing. I did exactly what I said I would do. And so, and you know, you can stand there and you can yell at us because we're the elected officials, and you can say whatever you want to and we can take it. But I would really appreciate it if you would stop attacking the city attorney, because she's following the law. And so you may not like her, you may not agree with her. Okay, that's fine. Then your lawyer can fight it out in court, okay? And I feel terrible for what you're going through, but there's also facts and evidence that we're not allowed to talk about right here that the rest of the people don't know. And you're not sharing them. And so I would really appreciate if you would stop attacking. I would just say, please stop attacking my staff, okay? You can yell at us, you can call us names, you can be angry. I understand, but she's doing her job, and I need you to stop saying defaming things to our city attorney, and I would appreciate that.
Can I say something real quick? Yeah, I was just gonna say that I don't have any record of you reaching out to me at all. Otherwise, I would have met with you and looked at what we could do. I have no record of that. Oh, gotcha.
To the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to pull an item?
Nope.
How about staff? Anybody in the audience? Saying anybody online?
No hands are raised, Mayor.
To approve the consent calendar.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
and Mayor Carlskent.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is public hearings. 9A is adopt resolution 2024-064, authorizing the city manager execute an energy services master agreement with SiteLogic. A presentation by our Public Works Director. Did you want to introduce it?
Well, I'm not gonna, because I really love this I really love this project, and Matt, I've worked a little bit on it with him, but honestly, this is his baby. It's his brainchild, and he knows it from front to back.
Okay, I'll get started. We do have a PowerPoint presentation, but tonight we're talking about the Energy Services Master Agreement with SiteLogic. We were here about a month ago. We had representatives from SiteLogic kind of give a broad overview of their company as well as the project that we have been working on collaboratively together for over 6 months. So tonight, I'm going to briefly cover kind of where we are in the process and provide an overview. I'll provide some background, some initial project development. We'll talk about the California Government Code 4217 briefly, which allows us to pick a energy service company. Talk briefly about the scope and cost, where we're proposing to do solar power generation, and then again, where we are in the process and what we're asking, what the recommendation is of your council tonight. So as we spoke about a month ago, and we're all very familiar, PG&E electricity rates continue to escalate, and pretty substantially most recently. And with that, that puts pressure on our utility rates. It puts pressure on our CFD funds, our LAD funds, and just the city expenses overall. We've been implementing energy conservation projects. We've been doing LED light conversions with EcoGreen. We do have some of those in the works that we'll be bringing to you, and those are at parks and city facilities. We've been implementing variable frequency drives on our well pumps and our wastewater pumps to make sure we're having efficient utility services, as well as installing upgraded HVAC controls. I think we recently did one of those projects at the library. But we still have the escalating power rates, and we were looking for alternatives to lower energy costs. So we reached out to several companies. Initially, we were talking with 3 companies and narrowed it down to 2 companies. And those were SiteLogic and ENGIE. And staff has experience working with both of the firms. They're highly reputable, highly qualified. And because of the Government Code 4217, this isn't necessarily a low bid process. We can get proven companies that have track records of successful projects. So we did select SiteLogic after reviewing proposals from both companies. We interviewed the teams, and the city manager, finance director, myself, and the facilities manager participated in this process. And those are some of the reasons listed there on why we selected that firm for recommendation. And they also were here on the 12th. They proposed, Jessica and Taylor are both here tonight. Following the presentation, if there's any additional questions or if anything comes up during the public hearing, public comment period. Here's a reminder of California Government Code 4217. There is an approved list. They're on that list, which makes this eligible procurement, that they are a, what's the term here? National Association of Energy Service Company. So the project and scope in a nutshell here, we have 2 work orders shown, and as they were watermarked in the packet, we're not approving the work orders tonight, but they have, as demonstrated in the attachments to the staff report, we've gone through, they've done their homework. We have 2 projects ready to go with all the cost estimate and the full scope included. Included in the packet is also the operation and maintenance agreement, which we know the service life of this project is more than 10 years, but I believe there's a restriction. They can only contract the operations and maintenance and energy management services for a 10-year period, and that's what's included in the packet. The total investment is around $11 million. There will be some additional contingency and miscellaneous fees, so that's an approximate number. And again, as we finalize the contracts, the estimated savings over 30-year life of the project is $20 million, and embedded in that would be a $2.4 million Inflation Reduction Act federal tax credit that we would file a city tax return, which we typically don't do, but would be required to receive the credit, and I believe we would get it in 2 to 3 years. The proposed projects, again, they're located at City Hall, 2 parking lots. We have 4 different solar arrays. We have one at the community center. We also have 8 HVAC units going in at the community center. We have 2 solar arrays out at the courtyard. We have and I didn't share the rendering, but we have the barn-style roof over the pickleball courts that will have lighting underneath at McBean Park. The police department has a solar array. They're also getting, I believe, 2 HVAC units. And at the airport, work order 2, that's the ground mount system. Again, this is just graphic. The city manager and I have reached out to an environmental consultant to get the CEQA underway, and we're awaiting a proposal. We did hear that the estimate was in the $25,000 range for the full package, as long as we can relocate those panels to avoid any vernal pools or any other sensitive habitat. So we're going to obviously look at recommending the final location based on avoiding sensitive habitat as well as minimizing any future impact to development opportunities on that parcel. So where we are in the process, we've identified our proposed ESCO partner. We've identified 2 work orders, work order 1 and 2, which I've just described. Tonight, what we're asking is that the city council authorize the city manager to enter into a energy services master agreement with SiteLogic, which essentially formalizes our partnership. And if approved, the next steps would be explore financing program options and select the program. In the staff report, I detailed out 3 options. I know myself and the finance director have been talking to the municipal financial advisor as well as funding partners, and we're continuing to explore that. SiteLogic and staff will finalize the project contracts and update cost once we get to that step. With inflation and with uncertainties of labor agreements that would be renewed on July 1st, we're not sure at what point in time, but I did hear from SiteLogic that it would be in the low single digits percentage as long as we can secure the contract within the next 3 months or so. We're not anticipating large escalation. And if it's sooner than later, there might not be any, but that can't be guaranteed until we know when we're gonna have funding secured. And then we'll return to city council for consideration of approval of the project contracts and funding program. And like the 4217 requirement that we hold this public hearing to select them as an ESCO, there's also a public hearing requirement for the funding approval. So we will be having another public hearing regarding the funding approval. So the staff recommendation tonight is continue the public hearing for March 12th. Consider for adoption resolution 2024-64, authorizing the city manager to execute an energy services master agreement with SiteLogic for the implementation of facility improvements, energy conservation, energy generation, and/or energy management services. And as a reminder, we are not approving either work order 1 or work order 2 tonight.
Thank you.
Council, if it's okay, I just wanted to add like 2 little clarifications or additions. There's having gone through a couple of these projects, there's this kind of cold feet mentality that sometimes occurs when you have a project in concept like we do right now, but there's a lot of work that the SiteLogic team needs to do in terms of design and some of the practicalities of putting these up. And so there's just a lot you don't know yet. And so sort of what's happening tonight is they're going to now be set off to go do that work in parallel with Matt and I trying to clear the one large site from an environmental perspective. All the other sites that are not the one out by the Public Works Yard fall under a CEQA exemption that was created a couple years ago, I think, for parking lots, small parking lots, so they're not subject to environmental review. this gives us a little time for SiteLogic to do their engineering work and us to do our work in terms of clearing the one large solar site. And so, I don't expect it, but if there was some sort of serious issue that came up that required some sort of change, you have time to get that done in advance of, construction occurring or financing. The second thing is, what we would have liked to have done, but it's just really complex in this moment, is to bring you a menu of financing options. But unlike a couple of years ago when there was other programs that were available at a state level, and the rates were very different a number of years ago, as everybody knows. Now there really is a very difficult or at least complex decision that the council is going to need to make about how you finance the project. There's a number of options, all with some benefits and some drawbacks. And so we just want to really spend this time to dive in to give you your menu and the best ones that we see, and then you can kind of bat them around and decide what you'd like to do.
Thank you. Questions?
I don't have any questions. I think this is great.
Question?
Yeah, just one. Obviously, there are multiple steps moving forward from here. Let's assume worst-case scenario. It just doesn't look like it's going to work out for us. Are there off-ramps built into this if we approve this tonight?
Yeah, so maybe Matt probably can address, I know Jessica can because I've heard her address it many times in the past, but my understanding is that if we get to the very end of the process and for practical reasons it's not going to work, we'll readjust the project. Let's just assume for the sake of discussion that all of your minds change when it's time for us to go out to bid on this. My understanding is that we would be on the hook for the cost that they're incurring to do all of this work to generate the project, getting it ready to go. And so that's sort of the commitment. But, from a practical perspective, it seems fair. They're going to invest a lot of money and time in this. Am I right about that, Jessica? Is there more? Good? Okay. All right.
Services rendered, steps to pay for it. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're extending their existing contract, right? Which was the study contract?
No, we're up until this point, we haven't actually been in any actual contractual agreement with them. They've done all this in gratis to get us here, and now they're going to go pay or use their staff to do the real work.
My only, anybody else has any questions or comments? I have a couple. Number one, it's confusing that you call the airport land-based the courtyard, because it isn't the courtyard. You got to know the courtyard thing. So in the future, I'd like to see that. You can't come to us, or maybe I don't understand. You won't come to us with financing options until we have the exact costs.
Yep.
The bids.
Correct.
Because that's going to have a bearing on.
Yeah, there will be a final decision point where we know within pretty close amount, what it's going to cost to construct, and then your options to finance it or pay for it in some other way.
Then I do have one financial question, which is, in looking at the material we got a month ago, there were some postulated savings and cash flow. I expected to see significant change in cash flow at year 9 when you switch from NIM 2 to whatever they're calling the damn thing, NIM 3, I guess. But I didn't see that in the tables.
One of the assumptions assumed was that with electric vehicle charging, that we would be using more power off the grid at those locations to offset the delta.
Okay, now you're getting the cold feet thing. Okay.
We know that at the courtyard, we will likely be using EV, even if it's in concert with hydrogen fuel cell technology. And obviously with the advanced clean fleet, we're going to move towards that direction. There is an assumption that the police department system is already NEM 3.
Right.
So at the community center, we assumed that the fleet there, or a portion of the fleet, could be EV of the rec department fleet. And I'm trying to think of the other site, City Hall, we could have EV fleet there as well. And effectively, there is some assumptions there. There is.
So at the City Hall, the Community Center, and McBean Park, we also assumed that in the next 9 years, you would have public EV chargers as well. So we took into account the increased load that you would have, which could be offset by the public paying for the charging. And then that increased load could be offset by the solar once you transition into NEM 3. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I think like overall, we have to make assumptions in order to kind of, because we just don't, there's so many unknown variables. But I don't want to assume this because there's a lot of work to be done, but let's assume that the project roughly stays over 30 years, somewhere between 25 million and $30 million, roughly. Even if some of those things don't come to pass in the same way, it won't swing the savings of the project in any, it doesn't appear that it swings it in any significant way, that would make it untenable.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Any comments, questions from the public?
So this is a public hearing, Mayor.
Oh, that's right. It is open a public hearing. Any public people that want to be heard? Yes.
Good evening, Council. Thank you again for receiving my comments. I just wonder if there have been any health studies conducted about increasing exposure to all these EV elements that as you increase that usage in public places, what effects, if there are any negative effects to people, to children, to pets, animals, things like that.
I don't think we are able to answer that.
No, I don't have an answer for that. Although I could just tell you that, thousands of, well, probably hundreds of thousands of solar projects across just California. I haven't seen any data that indicates that on any level, but
is
doesn't
there
mean
data?
that it doesn't exist.
Is there data?
Well, I have not seen any data that indicates that.
So perhaps there is no data to analyze then? Is that what we're saying?
Perhaps.
Okay, well then that's why I'm bringing it up, because perhaps there should be data.
Perhaps.
Thank you for that consideration.
I doubt that we'll undertake as a city a EV hazard study for the health of the nation. Are there any other public comments?
No
Any
hands are
online?
raised. No hands are
No
raised.
online. So I'll close the public hearing. Close it. And bring it back for more discussion or vote.
So I think what I will say, just in response to that public comment, is what we're really talking about here tonight is a solar project spread throughout the city. We're not talking about EVs and the impacts of those on future, potential future medical or health issues. I'm sure those studies, I can't imagine studies have not been done, quite honestly. I've got to imagine they're out there one way or another, but what's before us tonight is this solar savings, really. So with that, I'll go ahead and move the item.
I second.
Motion and a second, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner,
Aye.
Councilmember Andriotta,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
and Mayor Carl Skint.
Yes. Next item on the agenda general business, is to adopt Resolution 2024-065, approving a 6-month local business resource fund pilot program. Spry, take it away.
Could you pull that leg out on the table and square that off? Yeah. Was making me nervous.
Good evening, Erin Fry, Economic Development and Communications Specialist. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council, for the opportunity this evening to present a proposal for a local business resource fund. So in an effort to balance future growth opportunities with business retention, which we've spoke about in recent months, we began investigating how best to support local businesses who are facing mounting expenses and overhead costs, including increases in rents and cost of their utilities. So for many small businesses, as I'm sure you can imagine, the feedback we've received is that a lack of resources is a significant barrier to expand or even begin marketing efforts, which is such a critical piece of small business success. As a result of that feedback, we are proposing a local business resource fund, essentially a grant program from the city to local small businesses. So the Economic Development Department has budgeted $30,000 for miscellaneous public relations services and city events. So we are here tonight to propose utilizing those already allocated funds to create the Local Business Resource Fund pilot program. The primary purpose of this program would be to provide grants that promote the City of Lincoln's overall commerce and to increase business activity by supporting marketing efforts and economic development related events within the city and region. If approved, the pilot program would launch June 1st and run through December 31st of this year. The proposal before you tonight, which you would see in your staff report, including documents that include guidelines in terms of condition, as well as proposed application, outlined that the proposal is to allocate $6,000 per district for the pilot program. Want to explain that a little bit in terms of where that feedback came from. There is a tremendous effort by the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce to do outreach based on districts to equitably distribute not only funding, but also support to all areas of the city. So the proposal before you tonight aligns with those efforts on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce to distribute the available funding for the pilot program equitably across all 5 districts, which would allocate $6,000 per district during the 6-month time period. The proposal, as I mentioned, is on a first-come, first-served basis and is subject to available funding. We ask you tonight to approve this 6-month Local Business Resource Fund pilot program supporting local efforts to really make Lincoln a business-friendly area and to support local businesses to continue to spread that message on our behalf and to increase both shoppers and diners to this area. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thanks, Erin. That was great. Okay, lots of questions. You want to go first?
Just one really, Erin. You propose taking the 30,000, dividing it up between the 5 districts. Let's assume for a moment, totally theoretically, there are no applicants within a given district within the year. Do those funds simply remain unspent, or do we try to direct them to another applicant?
Based on how the proposal is written tonight, they would sit unfunded, but that's something we can definitely look on how we allocate that or also measure the program. I think the intent of the proposal was to make sure we're reaching all businesses in all areas of the city based on other programs that we have in place that support specific areas, whether that be more industrial-based business near the airport or some of the efforts we have in downtown Lincoln. So the way it was written was to equitably distribute it, understanding that that might not, that the same business types don't exist in each district, if I would. So that's something we could definitely adjust or look at further to ensure that those funds are being used, but then we could measure and report back on how it's being utilized within each district.
And then the flip side of that would be trying to avoid getting into that last minute, end of the year, we better get it spent.
Exactly. And really understanding that these are funds that we have available, and we understand there's a need with our local businesses. So how can we best use these dollars and support local business? And we think supporting marketing efforts, even at a lower dollar, allows businesses to perhaps create a website that they otherwise couldn't. Attend an event that helps them market their business, not only supporting their efforts to increase business, but also highlighting Lincoln and what we have to offer here. So while they are small numbers, we believe that can make an immediate impact and help our overall goals in terms of increasing economic activity and making this just a place where we do interesting things and we are business friendly. So that is the intent. That is why we built it as a first come, first serve. We understand that these opportunities come and go. And so we want to be able to support businesses with a very streamlined process that doesn't require a tremendous amount of upfront work, but that we can then actively monitor that and measure the success and hopefully bring something back to you with more funding in years to come.
Thank you.
Oh, you go first.
No,
No,
please.
go first.
No,
No,
go ahead.
I insist. I insist.
So I was gonna say it's along the same lines as Paul, making sure that it's distributed right, but I love that we're looking at doing this because with the small business, wherever it is here in Lincoln, the more that we can do some marketing that might pull in people from other cities to help, or even attract additional businesses that I didn't have just a comment, I didn't have a question. I
No,
like it, yes.
and I appreciate that. And I think our intent with this program is to show we're not only trying to attract business here, we understand what makes Lincoln great is the businesses that are already here today.
Yeah.
And our efforts need to be equitably split between the two to ensure that those businesses that make Lincoln Lincoln can be successful in this environment and the environments we hope to create in the future.
So, yeah, thank you. My question is, what's your strategy to get the word out to the business so they know to apply for this? Because I know when we did the ARPA grant money for the business, like Tom from the chamber had to go knock on doors and get, so how are you going to do that?
Great question. We have a number of resources we're creating as a part of this outreach program. We plan to, if approved this evening, present this as part of the city's business update at the Chamber of Commerce Business Roundtable on April 25th. So that would be our introduction. And we'd also then have 2 months to answer any questions from local businesses before the application period opened on June 1st. We also have a tremendous amount of social media assets that we would be pushing out to local businesses. And then we have staff that attend monthly meetings. So the goal would be to make this our agenda item at Economic Development Committee and the Chamber Breakfast, anywhere that we can get the message out.
Very good. All right. Pass it back to the mayor in just a second. Any public comment on this item? All right. Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you again, Sandy from Placer County. Great program, anything to help our businesses, our small businesses, that's wonderful. I mean, the lockdowns unfortunately took their tolls on people, and so many businesses were lost, and just, it's a great way to try and recover. Thank you, Councilwoman Andreatta, for the question that you had about trying to get the word out. So that was one of my questions. And then the other question I had was, given the low amount, once the word gets out, how do you prioritize who, is it first come, first serve, or how are you going to measure who needs it more than someone else? Thank you.
Thank you for those great questions. As I said, we have a dedicated effort to get the message out early, which is why our priority was to bring this item before you tonight to take advantage of some of the chamber outreach that's taking place in the month of April. In addition to that, we understand that with $30,000, we aren't going to be able to meet the needs of everyone. But we do feel like this is an amount that we can be successful and have measurable results that we can then bring back to you to make further decisions to expand this opportunity for additional businesses. So with the guidelines in terms of condition that's included in your staff report this evening, we have outlined eligibility requirements and areas of funding that would need to be supported with a project plan that would be submitted to the selection committee, which would be a member of the executive team and myself who would be making those decisions. If the project plan meets the requirements listed as part of the guidelines in terms of condition, we would then submit the grant funding as long as funding remains at that time. So that would be our goal. We want to, as I said, make sure that businesses can take advantage of any opportunity that's presented to them. So we don't want to hold on to the funding and reserve that decision till the end of the application period.
We haven't checked comments on Zoom yet, Mayor. So that's what we have to do.
Thank you. No hands are raised, Mayor.
Oh, do you want to go ahead? Okay, yep. I move that we adopt resolution 2024-065, approving a 6-month local business resource fund.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Vote,
Thank
please.
you. Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner? Councilmember Lauritsen? And Mayor Carlskint?
Yes. Go on to the next item on the agenda. Adopt resolution 2024-066, approving the city council guidelines for effective collaborative governance and associated final report.
Thank you, Mayor. And good evening. Over the past number of months, City Council, and then formally at a meeting a couple months ago, directed staff to arrange a series of work sessions with professional support to guide the City Council in developing a set of guidelines and principles that are intended to encourage effective and collaborative governance within the City of Lincoln. More specifically, the process is designed so that the City Council would be able to come up with a series of commonalities about how business is conducted at a City Council level, and most importantly, the business that is conducted within formal public meetings. So that's just what we did. We contracted with a facilitator who's worked with this council before, and there was a number of tasks that were involved in that process. There was a lot of research that the facilitator did into sort of just good governance practice throughout the state of California about how an elected body interacts with one another, how you parse through complex issues, how you deal with I don't need to tell you, but for the sake of the public, frequently you have to make really hard decisions. And one of the things that is just a reality about governance is that nearly every decision has someone that either disagrees with it or feels that or is worse off as a result of the decision. And so that's a very difficult and heavy weight to carry. And so it can create inefficiencies and conflict that makes the decision-making process more difficult than it already is. And so the research really was to sort of take a sampling of what many other jurisdictions have done to try to create a set of guidelines so that that you can be the most efficient and this can be the most productive space as you serve your communities. The second was that the facilitator held individual meetings with each council member to discuss some of your personal desires to see in terms of guidelines. And then finally, we did a workshop with the public workshop with the city council where you developed those guidelines in real time. We had some ideas about what they could be, but they were not prescribed to you. They were come up. It was very important to myself and the facilitator that this be a council-driven document. It's not something I could write it up. I could have written it up for a lot less than the time and effort than we spent, in an afternoon in my office. But it needs to be yours, and it needs to be future councils. Once that work was done, we took all of that feedback, and the facilitator, who Greg Greason, he's online tonight if there's any questions. We packaged that into what you see in your packet this evening, and Aaron was kind enough to put it into the kind of City of Lincoln branding, which we will, if approved tonight, our goal would be to create a web page within our site that sort of puts this out there for folks. So it says what you're about and what the expectation of elected officials in Lincoln is about. So if it's okay with you, Mayor, I have a couple other technical comments I'd like to make at the end, but I'd like, if it's okay with you, to read all 12 of them, if that's okay. Okay. I'll do it quickly. Number one, strive to make decisions that are in the best interests of the community as a whole and to work for the common good, not personal interest. 2, create an atmosphere of respect and civility where members of the public, city staff, and council members are free to openly express their ideas and concerns. 3, prepare in advance for council meetings. Be familiar with the issues on the agenda and, to the greatest extent possible, ask questions of the city manager and, well, I would add and staff, but we'll just assume that's there, before meetings so everyone is prepared and no one is taken by surprise. Participate fully in council meetings and other public forums while demonstrating respect, consideration, and courtesy to others. 5, focus on discussions and decisions on the facts and merits of each matter, not on personalities and biases. 6, a request for more information on an issue before the council is appropriate, and whenever possible, that request will be made prior to the city council meeting. 7, articulate dissenting opinions for the benefit of the council and the community. 8, disagree agreeably and professionally, and do not use inappropriate language, tone, or nonverbal gestures or make personal attacks. 9, praise in public, criticize in private. 10, respect the proper roles of elected officials and city staff in ensuring open and effective government and communication through the city manager. 11, share information with other council members and city staff and avoid surprises. One kind of late comment that I received on this, which was really great, it came from the mayor, was that we may have a small textual edit to that to make it very clear that we're not suggesting that anybody breaks the Brown Act by coming to a common concurrence or collective concurrence on any matter. The idea is essentially that to the extent that you're able to within the confines of the Brown Act, you should be trying to share information with your colleagues so that you can all have equal information when you're trying to make a decision. And finally, conduct an annual review of these guidelines as part of the strategic planning and update process, with the mayor reviewing the guidelines with newly elected council members that may be elected to the council in the future. So that is, we wanted it to be succinct, clear, and generally common sense, which I think we pretty much accomplished. The 2 technical things I wanted to add, that one of them I addressed in the resolution, and one of them is not addressed, and it's really more of a council discussion to have, but we could add it in meeting if you'd like. The first is that there was discussion amongst the council during the workshop about the importance of, you are the tip of the pyramid here, and so all of your committees and commissions, of which we have many, many of them, all have mostly volunteers that serve in those capacities that provide value up to you as a city council. The council felt, I think, pretty strongly that these standards, these guidelines, be pushed down to every single one of those boards. So I've included in the resolution that we'll make syntax changes so that it, instead of council says commission or committee or whatever it may be. And we will, if approved, staff will present and apply each one of these to each of the committees so that, it's just kind of clear. This is how we do business here. And this is the expectation of, if you'd like to participate. The second is an interesting question, and I'm sure it'll lead to some discussion, is this question about whether it's useful to have newly elected officials that come in. We have all kinds of onboarding procedures for new electeds, a variety of things that they need to do. And one of the things that we thought you could do is have new electeds that come in sign the document, you know, sort of acknowledging that you're going to, you know, generally follow these guidelines. Now, here's kind of the complexity to it. You don't have to sign it, right? It's different, to a point earlier, I think during public comment, it's not the same as an oath of office. That's constitutional, very different, right? This is our local guidelines. And so it's possible, I suppose, that you may have newly elected officials that come in that say, I'm not signing it. I don't care what it says. I'm not signing it. I don't agree with it. I don't want to follow 1 or 4 or 7 or any of them. And it wouldn't be a prerequisite to them continuing to serve. They certainly continue to serve and would have all the same duties and powers that you have as an elected official. But one of the pieces of feedback I received over the past week is that at least if that occurs, it's clear that this elected or this group of electeds don't want to follow this policy, and that way the community at least can know that. So that can be added in if that's something you'd like. Separately, I think it's super important that in the future, yearly, and it should be during strategic planning, but we might even just do it as a standalone. This needs to be continuously updated and dusted off, and making sure that people remember what it says, they're thinking about it at least every so often, and things change, right? So, you know, there may be things that come up that we haven't foreseen here, and so we want us to be a living document where you're, you know, probably not deleting a whole lot, but maybe adding a thing here or there as they come up over time, so that you can do the best jobs you can do, and everybody feels comfortable in the format and can express themselves. And ultimately, the point of this, aside from all of the kind of flowery language, is we think that we know that really successful communities are successful because their councils are successful. That's it. You can have the best staff in the world, the best, but if the city councils, you know, aren't working towards, you know, the betterment of the community, then doesn't really matter. So we hope that this sort of meets with your approval and is sort of generally what you were looking for when you directed the work, and open to any comments or questions.
Okay, any comments or questions?
Well, I'm happy
Sorry.
with it, and I agree with signing it and having new council members sign it, just as a show of goodwill that they're willing to, you know, work together in a cordial and professional way.
Yeah, so I think this is a really good start. What I would encourage the council members that are still going to be here moving forward to consider is moving this even further into the realm of policy governance that lays out the roles of staff members and council members. We don't have it here now, but there is in the past been a tension of council members attempting to become administrators and administrators attempting to become policymakers. So if we can lay that out very, very clearly.
Right, I agree.
Especially for those new council members who don't know.
No, I agree with you. We do have a binder, right, for new council members that talks about how you interact with staff and all that. All we have to do is just kind of put all that together. Yeah. So I agree. That's good.
And build upon that.
Yeah.
I think the notion of having everyone voluntarily sign it is a good one. As an alternative, if they are unwilling, maybe we have a different spot on there where they sign it simply to say they've received it, rather than, you know, somewhere down the road, a claim of, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, never seen that, never heard of it, whatever it might be.
And I think it's important to recognize that this is not a legally binding document. I'm going to pick on Councilmember Brown. If Councilmember Brown decides that he's not going to follow the, let's see, what would Ben not follow? He would, the prepare in advance of council meetings. I'm not doing it. I don't want to do it. And I'm just going to come in cold every meeting. He certainly, that's his right to do as a duly elected official. What we are just simply saying is that if you'd like to be successful, here is what the city council thinks that we need to do as a group to be successful.
So I will point out, Dan, that this was your last evening to get away with inappropriate language. Once we
Yes,
approve this,
yes.
it's already started.
Yeah, it's already started,
I haven't signed this.
Yeah.
The, I believe very strongly that it needs to be signed or not signed, but there has to be a decision made by the council person that they are not going to be held to the moral responsibility. It's not a legal thing. This is a morality thing. I don't know if that's the right term or not.
Ethics.
It's an ethics thing, okay? And they're not to be held to those ethics. I think they,
Well, it's a professional standard as well.
There you go.
so I'm kind of along the lines there. When you said you're going to change the syntax, it got me in for commissions and for committees. Will there be some context there too? Because the things that are handled, the actual items are different. And there may be, there may be some other issues that we need to discuss that don't, not, or the things that don't apply to us, but apply to them.
I don't think so. I've thought about that a lot. I can't think of any example. I think it happens in the reverse more often, that there's plenty of things that apply to you that don't apply to them. Now, for example, there's a formality to city council meetings and to planning commission meetings that doesn't exist in the same way as like an EDC meeting or an airport. That's a little bit more of a free flow. We try to stay on the agenda, but it's a different kind of meeting, right? So if you give us enough leash here, I think that we can make the changes so that it's at least applicable to them. And what we could do too is we'll go and present this to each group. And if they say, hey, you know, Sean, it says prepare in advance of let's call it recreation department meetings. Sometimes all we get is just an agenda with not a ton of additional materials. And so how am I to prepare? And some perhaps we'll need to make some changes about like where possible or another example might be, hey, it's kind of tough for me in some of these airport meetings to get to staff in advance of the meeting. And so I can't ask the question sometimes because of, you know, they're looser meetings. So we can work with those so that, and have them propose little changes if they'd like to. That'd be fine. I think as long as you just sort of decree that it has to generally follow the tone and tenor of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. You have the rope to hang yourself. Any comments? More comments? Ben?
I have one at the back. Oh, sorry.
On up.
Yeah. Ben?
No.
Okay, here. Public?
Yes, hi, Sandy again from Placer County. I just wanted to, there was a question I had because you kind of went through it quickly. I think you said there was a listing that said something about dissenting comments. Could you repeat that, please?
Sure can. There's a couple here. Let me find the one you're probably referencing. Number 7, articulate dissenting opinions for the benefit of the council community. The concept of that is that in some cases, it's all situationally dependent, but sometimes if it adds to the discussion and the good decision making, that if there's a couple or even just one dissenting opinion, that the reasoning behind the dissension is somewhat stated, not because it's an opportunity for someone to try to change a vote one way or the other, but because it adds to the value of the discussion. So if everybody's just a yes on it and you got one no, and that no says, you know, I'm not going to say any reason why I'm saying no, it's just no. That's fine in a vacuum, but it doesn't add anything to the other 4 decision makers who you might have a really great point. Hey, I think that's a horrible idea because of X, Y, and Z, and maybe Councilmember Andriotta or any of them didn't think of that, and so would change some thoughts and discussions, and you arrive to a better decision.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, the other comment I had was, I think you said that it would be something you would revisit with the council members. So is that like an annual thing you think you would review with them? And
Yep.
also, if a person decides initially not to sign, but they change their mind, they don't have to wait till the end of the year to sign it.
Sure.
Or if they change their mind and they don't want to sign it anymore, they can change that as
Yep.
well, right?
Well, I'm not sure how you take a signature back, but yeah.
I mean, but honestly, it's such I think of it kind of like the honor system when you camp. Like, no, say you're at a campground and out in the middle of nowhere, there's nobody watching it. No one's going to know if you left a bunch of trash at the camp, but you know, right? And so it's very similar in this sense. If you just decide, yeah, hey, I'm not following it, there's no, guideline police that are out there that are going to arrest you. But it does give the opportunity for, when we get into a really tense situation, which happens periodically, or just a really difficult project and, emotions are high, this helps bring people back to, hey, we're in a tough situation, but remember, if we follow generally sort of just these common sense things that I think are generally common sense, we can get through this process without, a bunch of collateral damage to everybody else.
And then just another question was, do the constituents get a chance to make any input? And, I mean, I'm doing one now,
Mhm.
but I mean, in the rest of the process or
Mhm.
prior, where the public.
Yeah,
was
we
given
had a
chance to-
public workshop on
Oh, you
this.
did?
Yeah.
Okay,
And-
wonderful.
And then every time we revisit it, I would hope that people like you and other members of the community might come out and, I'd love it if someone came up and said, hey, what about number 13? We think this would be really great. It would be awesome to have that kind of feedback for sure.
Okay, good. And then, Council Member Joyner, thank you for what you said. I think you called it what is it, a professional standard or? Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you.
With respect to the dissenting opinions, I'm just going to point out that for me at least, those are wonderful moments as a council member when somebody says something and you realize, oh, heck, I was wrong. That's a really good point, and my opinion has been shifted as a result of that. So if people aren't speaking up, if they aren't sharing their thoughts in a professional and cordial, collegial manner, those moments are lost. We're left with our own research, our own thoughts, and the discussions of those willing to have those conversations.
We do have a hand raised on Zoom. Whitney, please go ahead.
Hi, I wasn't planning to speak on this, but I just wanted to add in my 2 cents off the cuff. I think this is just so fabulous that you workshopped this, and I think that it's really valuable and impactful to have these tools from a professional about communicating in such a unique environment. And I know as a planning commissioner, not being a council member, it's still a unique experience that you can't really understand, I think, completely until you're in the situation with the pressures of all the different elements of the environment from your constituents or residents or fellow members, appointed staff. And I'm just wondering if this is something that even planning commissioners could workshop. If I don't know if it was expensive or if it's just like something that could be done, differently, but the same information kind of shared. But I am all for it. I think that it's great.
I think the intent is it goes down to the commission, including the planning commission. And they will do the same thing as far as would be the chair's responsibility to brief this and to go over it with new members. I assume they will assess it yearly with, and come back with suggestions to council if they see needed changes.
Yeah, for commission, I hadn't thought about it until Whitney mentioned it, but the planning commission is a different body compared to some of the other, because it has actual, very clear decision-making authority up to a certain level. And it's just it's a different animal. And so what I think if it's okay with council, what I'll do with planning commission is I will go and do a very similar kind of full presentation for them with time for discussion. And, I don't anticipate that anyone would have any issues with sort of a lot of the common sense stuff here, but if they, what we could do is if they said, hey, we love this, but we want to add or edit the following, they can do so, and then we'll bring it back on consent or something, and council can approve that for them. And I'll do something similar for each and every other committee too.
No, Mayor, no other hands are raised.
Okay,
I move, Mayor, to adopt Resolution 2024-066, approving the City Council guidelines for effective collaborative governance and associated final report.
has he made some changes?
Whatever the additional changes.
Well, the signing is in there. This fact that you need to sign it.
Oh,
is
yeah,
not in there
that's right, yeah. With the.
with an
No, you
annotation.
can't. Say with the amended.
With the amended changes.
Okay.
Fine.
Yep, got it.
And I second.
Have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta,
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen, and Mayor Carlskent.
Yes. Okay, now we're on to the fluff of the meeting. City manager report.
Thank you. Only a couple brief items. I like to, if I can, I try to give heads up to council, but I guess I'll just do it for the community as well. We likely are going to have a fairly heavy second meeting in April, so just be prepared. It may not be as long as our marathon, whatever that was, 10:30 or 11 o'clock one the other night, but there's quite a bit on that agenda. Second thing is just wanted to, because I have had the chance to work with them a little bit. The Women's Club had 100-year celebration was yesterday. I got to swing by. It was really great. Their building has redone their floors. It was really nice to be in that space and learn about the history of the club. And third is just something kind of interesting because this doesn't come up all that often, but Chief and I are going to go to a conference next week that's called the Police Chief City Managers Conference. It's been going on in California for a long time. And it's sort of a rare one because the relationship that my position has with Matt's position is really unique and unusual. And we're sort of tied together that our success, I need him to be successful as much as he needs me to be successful. And so the question is how do we work together so that the things the chief deals with on a day-to-day basis are not quite alien, but they're close to alien to me. And I think he would probably tell you vice versa a lot of the time. And so we're interested to go kind of meet with a bunch of other folks in similar positions and learn a little bit about how we can cultivate that and grow. So other than that, I don't think I have any major reports tonight.
So that could be interesting. It's not unusual for the chief of police to be named acting city manager in the absence of the city manager. It would be intriguing to see a day where the opposite becomes.
You want to do
true.
that, Chief? Maybe we'll do a week. I'll take your job, you take mine.
I'm okay with half of that.
Anyone have any business they want to initiate? committee reports. Any committee report? I have,
He doesn't have any.
Mine was canceled.
I have one. Do you have one?
You want me to go ahead?
Go ahead.
Just very quickly, attended PCTPA. We adopted a resolution approving amendment number 3 of the fiscal year 2023-24 overall work programs and budget, and authorized the executive director to submit that to Caltrans. We also approved the preliminary draft of the fiscal year 2024-25 overall work program and budget. Also attended the SACOG Transportation Committee. Most of what was handled there is not relevant to the city of Lincoln itself. But what we did do was recommend that the board adopt the 2025 Regional Active Transportation Program Policy Update. And that's in reaction to the fact that in March, the California Transportation Commission adopted the 2025 statewide ATP guidelines, and that's initiated a statewide call for projects. So we're pulling that list together.
We had the PCWA City 2x2 meeting this morning. That's always a very enjoyable meeting to go through. There's a lot of synergy and enthusiasm. And this was no different. The city presented our immediate growth projections, and PCWA did theirs. We're projecting about 550 new starts homes this year based on how the first quarter went. And it's interesting in that Bickford is already currently constructing 25% of their homes. They've got the infrastructure done for that.
30.
And that, which will consume their prepaids, at least on wastewater. Did you have something to add, Val?
No, it was 30%, not 25.
Okay, I thought, okay.
Sure.
30. We discussed they've completed their water connection study, which is the use of water by residential, 2,300 homes, 2,300 neighborhoods in Placer County, and came up with numbers validated over 4 years that are significantly lower than the last studies that they did. So they're trying to get a handle on what that does to future construction of in particular, Ophir Water Treatment Plant and the infrastructure to service. Good PR presentation by a joint venture between PCWA, Lincoln, I guess Roseville, in branding, branding our water, if you will. And it looks like there's a lot of collateral material will be shared that will increase our synergy. One of the things I thought was very interesting is the last poll that PCWA took showed that the average resident thinks that our water systems are in worse shape than our road systems. That's unbelievable, but it just shows that we're not doing the marketing and the outreach that we should be doing. because it's exactly the opposite. We also discussed the beginnings of the sharing of some rebate programs to support the new rulemaking done by the regional water on conservation. This conservation is the new way of life. And we will be coming out with some joint programs with BSHUD WA. And that takes care of that. So, information on that.
I do have one. A couple weeks ago, we had a meeting regarding the community park, which is the skate park. So we met with Araceli, Doug Brown, and Scott Boynton with two guys from the consultant company, and then Max Moon from the Skate and Bike Club in Lincoln, his friend, and then another young man named James, who is like a legit skate guy. And I'm really glad he came because he had a lot of really great ideas and just very passionate about skateboarding. He actually brought in an idea that I think we're going to try to incorporate. It's gone now with the remodel of Lincoln High School, but there used to be steps and a flat and then steps. And apparently a very famous skateboarder skated on that, and it was in a very famous video that they all love. And so we're going to try to recreate that in the skate park. So that was just one of the really, and he just went on and on about how awesome it was. And so we had, yeah, it would, no, it was, I don't mean that it's funny. I mean, he was very emotional about it, and it was very helpful. Just stop. No, I really appreciated him being
We've
there.
actually got some over at the new 12 Bridges High School that he could just.
Yeah, but it wasn't used in the video, so yeah. So the group chose the plan that they liked the best, and what was really neat about it is that James, this skateboarder, he said, and he listed off all these skate parks in the area, and he said, if we build it like this, he said, this will be the premier skate park and everybody will come here. Yeah, and so that was really kind of exciting. So we chose the design, they're doing their work, and then we'll come back with the next phase of the planning, whatever. But that was a pretty fun meeting to be in, so yeah.
Sean, as long as we're on parks, did you want to do an update on Jimenez and the work that's being done there now?
Maybe Vin might, because you guys are you in construction right now? I think you are.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yes, I think construction just started. Travis, are you on the call? I think I gave him the night off, but I mean, to be honest with you, I've been bouncing around in meetings. I know that Jimenez Park did start construction, and Araceli's been just the various parks that she's been working on in various phases.
I
The
didn't
skate
mean to
park and Bella
put you on the
Breeze.
spot. There actually is a notice that went out to the public on that. The construction fence is up around the entire parking lot now on the property. And so it'll be good to see that phase 3 underway very, very soon.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe just as a PSA, if you see a lot of trucks coming and going in and out of that area along Jimenez, that's what's happening. This is let me see here. I think it's the third of 4 phases. And it includes a a soccer field, lighted soccer field, improved parking. Right now, it's just kind of gravel. And then some other amenities throughout the park, additional walking paths, et cetera. So it'll feel a lot more like a completed park, even though there is still one phase left. But what I'm personally looking forward to is sort of the really nice curb appeal of driving along Highway 65 at nighttime when that soccer field's lit up and kids are playing out there. It's going to be really neat.
And if I could add to that, there was a public notice that went out through social media notifying them that a portion of the parking lot would be closed off now through May. And then when the additional parking lot work takes place over the summer, we will issue another notification so that people are aware of that.
Any other information? Okay, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:43.
Gotta hit your gavel, Mayor.
Better.
Gotta hit your gavel, Mayor. There you go. There you go.